The Sikh religion or faith tradition begins in the early 16th century with Nanak, referred to as Guru Nanak by his followers. Guru Nanak's compositions are the foundation of the Sikh sacred text, the Guru Granth Sahib, initially compiled in 1604 by the 5th Sikh Guru Arjan. Starting with the death by torture of Guru Arjan at the hands of Mughal officials, conflict between the Sikh community and imperial authorities intensified and continued throughout the 17th century. The 10th Sikh Guru Gobind Singh initiated an order of Sikhs, the Khalsa, to stand up for justice and against oppression. Many Sikhs observed the Khalsa code of keeping uncut hair, kesh, with a turban covering it, making them unusually visible in diasporic settings, especially in the West. Beginning in the late 19th century, Sikhs began migrating to North America, and there are now significant diasporic communities in Canada and the United States. A range of North America-based projects seek to preserve heritage, memories, and histories pertaining to the Sikh community, including its experiences in the diaspora, but also its earlier history. These projects are meant for the Sikh community itself, as well as to represent Sikhs to the majority in their new host countries. Examples include the community's earlier history in South Asia, earlier and later immigrant experiences in North America, specific events relating to recent or contemporary India and the United States, and general informational representations in the media. Representation occurs through varied institutions, museums, universities, rights organizations, dedicated nonprofits, and multiple forms: photographs, videos, art, material objects, audio recordings, music, and the written word. The goal of this video is to explore how this kaleidoscope of efforts at representation plays out. Put simply, a question we want to answer at least partially is, who owns the past? Who gets to decide what is represented and how? And how does the past become an object to be owned? How do language, knowledge, expertise, and motivation shape the framing, public representation, and consumption of the community's memories, experiences, and traditions? We examine the power of members of the community to frame and concretize its experiences and memories in various representations and venues without intrusion, exclusion, or external appropriation. We examine how these representational projects relate to issues of tradition and identity, translation and interaction, and function as what Mary Louise Pratt termed contact zones. We next give an overview of various pieces of the past, a sense of the range of Sikh experiences and the material objects that represent those experiences. Then we describe the varied routes by which these objects migrated to locations outside Punjab and outside South Asia. This is followed by an overview of the different types of institutions that host these objects, which leads to Mary Louise Pratt's concept of contact zones, with their association of asymmetries of power, where the past is selectively presented. We proceed to discuss questions of ownership, knowledge, meaning, authority, and power, and review some examples of representation, including exhibits and archives of various kinds. Sikhs have a compact and relatively well-documented history, and public representations of the community invariably include some summary of this history. The origins and influence of the Khalsa order, what is sometimes encapsulated as spiritual warriors, is a vital part of any narrative of Sikh tradition. The kingdom of Ranjit Singh, an 18th, 19th century Khalsa ruler, is another significant component of how Sikhs view their history. Interactions with British colonialism through military service, revolutionary anti-colonial activities, and intellectual engagement are another kind of episode that is featured. Finally, global migrations emerging out of colonial encounters constitute a variegated set of experiences of the diasporic condition and shape representations of the historical Sikh homeland of Punjab, including its conflicted politics and society. Beginning from the latter part of the 17th century, and increasingly so in the 18th and 19th centuries, there are numerous visual and tangible objects related to Sikh tradition. There are paintings and sketches, followed by early photographs. There are also coins, garments, and other textiles, weapons, and ceremonial furnishings. Importantly, there are many manuscripts that span the period from the late 16th century to the late 19th century. The reign of Ranjit Singh is an especially rich source of cultural artifacts from the late 18th and early 19th centuries. Much historically significant material is still in the possession of Sikh religious authorities or private individuals in India and Pakistan, especially in the two parts of Punjab, one in each nation. But Britain's imperial past led to many important objects such as Ranjit Singh's throne ending up in British museums. Private Sikh collectors in the diaspora have bought objects from the Sikh past in India and Britain, and these are now becoming the basis for permanent or temporary exhibits of Sikh heritage in North America. The experiences of the diaspora are also being collected and represented in various places, sometimes affiliated with Sikh religious sites known as Gurdwaras, and sometimes in other dedicated sites such as museums and galleries. The diaspora has also become important in marking tumultuous events in Punjab over the last few decades, including the violence and trauma inflicted on many Sikhs by the Indian state. Gurdwaras have become community-owned sites of representation. For example, the oldest extant Gurdwara in North America is in Abbotsford, British Columbia, built in 1911. It is managed by the Khalsa Diwan Society of Abbotsford, which maintains a physical Sikh heritage museum and a corresponding website which documents a long sequence of past exhibits with themes including discrimination, struggles for civil rights, questions of Sikh identity, the role of women, integration into Canada as immigrants, sports such as field hockey, cultural festivals, Sikh soldiers in World War I, and the legacy of Punjab as a homeland of the Sikh diaspora. Universities have played a relatively minor role in these representations, and efforts are typically subsumed in the broader diasporic category of South Asian. Museums and galleries have slowly increased their participation in representing the Sikhs, both in terms of their historic origins and their diasporic experiences. In the US, the Smithsonian Institution has been playing some role in working with community members on temporary and traveling exhibits. Mary Louise Pratt introduced the term contact zones in 1991 to refer, in her words, to social spaces where cultures meet, clash, and grapple with each other, often in contexts of highly asymmetrical relations of power, such as colonialism, slavery, or their aftermaths, as they are lived out in many parts of the world today. While Pratt examines the role of literary texts in these contact zones, James Clifford applies the term to museums, to quote from his book Roots. When museums are seen as contact zones, their organizing structure as a collection becomes an ongoing historical, political, and moral relationship, a power-charged set of exchanges of push and pull. For Clifford, the contact perspective goes beyond surfacing asymmetric power relationships, often rooted in imperial or colonial histories, to a more general deconstruction of assumed hierarchies of value and the pervasive logic of capitalism. However, this breadth of approach can obscure what Barbara Kirschenblatt-Gimblett terms the political economy of display. The question, who owns the past, raises issues of time, identity, and possession. The artifacts and records from each historical period that help to delineate that period are the building blocks of representation. Who gets to choose the people, periods, and objects that are represented, and the times, places, and contours of those representations? That is, who shapes the contact zone? In almost every case, there is a practical issue of ownership. Objects belong to individuals or families, governments or museums, creators or collectors. Detailed plans are required for collection, permanent or temporary, display, access, preservation, protection, and return. Depending on the nature of the objects, individual and institutional owners may view themselves as stewards of a community's heritage or components of its culture. But legal ownership remains an important factor in how contact zones are constructed and managed. For Sikhs in North America, private collectors and community archives have each played a role as owners of materials that form the basis of representation. Museums in the West typically relied on European anthropologists and historians, using their presumed knowledge gained from ethnography or reading of text to claim the authority to shape the contours of contact zones. Ethnographic authority is one aspect of broader questions of knowledge and expertise, which may build more generally on others' experiences and interpretations, not just one's own. Historiography uses such narrative records, but also relies on a wide array of documents and objects. Knowledge and expertise are presumed to be derived from an understanding of how various pieces of the past and present fit together. But the representation of Sikhs in the West has suffered from the neglect of typical standards of expertise, as we illustrate later in this video. We now turn to questions of purpose and meaning in representing a community, its past and its present. Barbara Kirschenblatt-Gimblet focuses on the agency of display, asking of each object or exhibit, what does it mean to show? If communication via language has a set of rules, vocabulary, grammar, punctuation, to facilitate the transmission of meaning, then potentially so do visual displays, though typically accompanied by verbal labels and explanations. What makes a museum exhibit meaningful? Members of the community being represented, as well as others who form part of the audiences of various public representations, may gain knowledge and understanding, and in the case of insiders, feelings of collective significance. Owners of the objects on display may gain emotionally from sharing. Here are a couple of examples. Mandeep Roshi Chadda, a museum board member of the Montreal Museum of Fine Arts, captures one aspect of motive and meaningfulness for these representations. What does it do for our people when they walk around the gallery and they see themselves reflected in these elite sort of institutions? It's a sense of pride, it's a sense of belonging, and it's a sense of, yes, I am somebody too. Dr. Parvinderjeet Singh Khanuja, one of the benefactors of a Sikh art gallery in the Phoenix Art Museum, offers a broader view. Our gallery is about saving the heritage and spreading awareness. For me, the biggest reward is when I see kids in there. They get to experience diversity and gain an understanding about the world around them. Art makes you a more cultured and better person. You become more aware of different events, faiths, and people from other parts of the world. It's good for the soul. We next explore how these questions of meaning and meaningfulness have played out in specific exhibits of Sikh heritage and culture. Although Sikh heritage objects, particularly art and artifacts connected to rulers and other elites, had become part of national and regional museum displays beginning in the colonial period, these were often presented in contexts that reflected projects of nation building in India or glorification of an imperial past in Britain. Individual Sikh collectors have made efforts to change the structure of representation, beginning with an exhibit at the Victoria and Albert Museum in London in 1999. The Asian Art Museum of San Francisco inaugurated a Satinder Kaur Kapani Gallery of Sikh Art in 2003. Other parts of the Kapani collection have been loaned to museums worldwide, and some found a permanent home in 2022 at the Montreal Museum of Fine Arts. A larger Sikh art gallery named for the donor's parents was established in 2017 at the Phoenix Art Museum in Arizona by Dr. Parvinderjeet Singh Khanuja and Parveen Kaur Khanuja. In the US, the Smithsonian Institution provides a significant site for representing the Sikh experience in the United States. The Smithsonian Sikh Heritage Project began in 2000, and a temporary Sikh Heritage Gallery opened in 2004-05 with an exhibit titled Sikhs: Legacy of the Punjab. Subsequently, the exhibit traveled to various other cities, often with additional material included, and each location featured its own set of ancillary activities such as lectures, performance, and demonstrations of Sikh practices. All these efforts involved a range of involvement from Sikh non-profit organizations, some of them created by well-off collectors or philanthropists, others with broader community membership. While the Smithsonian-connected efforts drew on a wealth of curatorial expertise and an academic background in cultural anthropology, the active involvement of scholars of the Sikhs was very limited. The gallery in Arizona offers regular themed exhibits, such as Virtue and Valor, Sikh Art and Heritage, which was in 2017, and Princely States of the Punjab, Sikh Art and History, which was in 2022 and 23. A 4-month-long exhibit at the Fowler Museum at UCLA in 2024 provided an explicit articulation of its goals. I Will Meet You Again invites a fresh look at the history and vitality of the Sikh culture through paintings, posters, tapestries, and multimedia installations. A hybrid array of material approaches reflect personal and gendered perspectives on the history of the community and its visual expressions. The works on view inform a Sikh understanding of home, as told through the eyes of Sikh and non-Sikh artists. Their narratives find inspiration in holy scriptures, legacies of persecution and protest, and the entwined forces of home and longing at play throughout the Sikh community's struggle for existence. Such exhibits potentially, though temporarily, create a less asymmetric contact zone. Museum exhibits have always included accompanying text. Now various kinds of digital media can accompany physical objects and text during the exhibit. In addition, digital versions of exhibits often provide an afterlife for the exhibit on the web, sometimes supplemented by video lectures about the exhibit. Books based on limited time exhibitions are another product that is sometimes generated to complement and extend the reach of exhibitions, adding dimensions and temporal persistence to the original contact zones. All of these technological developments are extensions of the basic idea of a museum, and they may provide opportunities for expanding contact zones in equalizing ways, such as with multilingual commentaries. But the unequalizing histories of ownership and claims of authority may limit this process. As Alirio Karina argues, one may need to think beyond the museum to escape the shadow of asymmetries of power. While museum displays are shaped by power relations, including those that precede and stand outside any particular formal exhibition, these power relations extend beyond museums. In the case of the study of the Sikhs, academic writing has arguably been heavily shaped by power relations, and its status as knowledge can be legitimately challenged. Its own curation protocols have flaws. Even digital archives, which ostensibly collect and display various historical records in an objective manner, have been subject to these asymmetrical power relations and shaky knowledge bases. For the study of the Sikhs, this can occur with university and with non-profit archives. UC Davis and the South Asian American Digital Archive are both examples of digital contact zones that have serious flaws. As opposed to individually produced web content, much of which does not claim any special authority, the above two cases are problematic because of projections of authority without adequate grounding. Of course, one problem of the internet is that it allows the spread of misinformation and poor quality information, driven by algorithms and popularity, rather than any reliable mechanisms of curation. Asymmetries of power in contact zones can be present even when community members are involved. At UC Davis, a digital archive was created by a community member, but Sikh was replaced by Punjabi in its name when another community member made that decision jointly with a Davis faculty member without knowledge of the community, seemingly because Sikh identity was viewed as somehow objectionable. Sikh was only added back in when scholars and community members raised concerns. But biases in the choice of content persist. Community members are rewarded for good behavior by the archive curator by being featured prominently. This is an extreme case, but even the sensitivity with which the Smithsonian curator handled interactions with the community was influenced by factors which did not reflect a level playing field. This is not to say that academic inputs should be privileged over community inputs, merely that the public representation of the Sikhs has lacked a level playing field in multiple dimensions, both within the community and within academia. In the limit, all records, all experiences, all memories constitute the past, and that past accumulates every instant. We are shaped individually by the past, and communities are shaped by shared pasts. Public representation of a community aids in that process, and it aids in negotiating coexistence with other communities. In 1970, Howard Zinn, the People's Historian of the United States, argued that the archiving of the past had privileged the rich and powerful, neglecting much of the rest of society. This critique was soon echoed by others and became the basis for ethnically based archives as well as people's histories. For diaspora Sikhs, their eagerness to be included at all, whether on their own or in larger narratives such as those of immigrants or South Asians, has led in some cases to acceptance of representation on less than equal terms. Their past can become effectively owned by someone else. Contact zones such as the Abbotsford Museum or the Phoenix Gallery are the exception rather than the norm.